quite obviously did not have access to intelligence information.
The Federation of American Immigration Reform, or FAIR, says there were gaping holes in communication and the screening process of immigrants. Rudi Dekkers told NBC2 the entire INS process is foreign to him.
Well, I don't know how close they looked at these applications.
The INS said they did nothing wrong, that all their paperwork was in order, even though it took more than a year to get to its proper destination. Jessica?
Amy, is this time lag getting the paperwork getting
Playing into what they're doing. The U.S. military rolling out its big guns. You're looking at the fully mobile Avenger.
Anything that can come to us from the air and cause damage to us, that's what we're here for, to stop it.
This isn't the first time the Venice airport's been used for a military exercise. In fact, it was built to train pilots during World War II, and it's still a prime location. But there's a strange twist that makes this operation almost surreal.
Atta and LC, they were trained here from July 2000 till January 2001.
This is the same property where the two World Trade Center terrorists learned to fly. Organizers say it's a coincidence, but do admit it's changed their drill.
Prior to 911, we were focused outward. That's where we saw the threat coming from. But now that we all know that it's possible to be attacked within our borders, then of course we've changed our focus.
Focusing on small planes armed with bad intentions, soldiers are tuning up their equipment, planning for something once considered unthinkable.
I have a good time with it because I know what it can do.
The action will kick into high gear tomorrow afternoon. We're told it won't be much to see. The airport will be closed and most of the fighter jets, they'll be out over the Gulf of Mexico. Jessica?
Amy, is this considered?
He gives his only anniversary interview to NBC2's Amy Osher. Amy.
Kelly, Craig, like him or not, Rudi Dekkers was always one to speak his mind. He was drawn into this tragedy as the owner of Huffman Aviation in Venice. For years, he told me he felt some people considered him guilty by association. But after 5 years, he says he has no apologies.
I wish, and still wish, every day, I wish I have known.
Once a public figure, the flight school owner who trained two 9/11 terrorists, Rudi Dekkers is 5 years older and ready to reveal his private pain.
I'm still emotionally involved in this stuff, and I think that will stay with me a long, long, long time.
We took him back to where it all began. The sign that once marked Huffman Aviation is gone. The building no longer a flight school. What kind of emotions do you feel when you come back and you see this place?
You know, all kinds. Brings me back to 9/11, and also about missing the company, missing the being busy in aviation. I'm completely out of aviation.
The day after the terror attacks, Dekkers' personal life plunged into a tailspin. FBI agents stormed his business and seized his records. The public spotlight was harsh. Are you angry that it happened somehow to you?
I kind of feel like, why me? Why me? But you know, life is a path that you go, and apparently this was on my path.
Mohammed Atta and Marwan al-Shehi simply walked into his Venice flight school and agreed to pay $20,000 each to earn their wings. They practiced in this small plane.
There would be nothing I would think about that I've seen as a signal or a feeling. I wish.
In the years that followed, Dekkers' life spiraled downward. In January 2003, he crashed his helicopter.
I know there's been an attack in my life.
He waited until now to speak of it. The FAA found an empty fuel tank. Dekkers believes it was sabotage.
And this is the first time I put it on the news, is that the helicopter crash that I had in the Caloosahatchee River in Fort Myers, I found out that my fuel line was made open.
If Rudi Dekkers' story comes across like a novel, it's because he's given it a lot of thought. He spent the last several years putting together a book. It's his take on the 9/11 tragedy. Shelves are full of terrorism-related offerings, from the government's 9/11 report to tales of personal heroism. Dekkers weighed the prospect of profiting from pain.
Well, 5 years later, I have seen now previous my book, many people making money on 9/11. Many. So I don't see at all a problem that, especially me, who lost so much.
He is haunted by memories, particularly of Mohammed Atta.
But every time when I think about 9/11, I think about him in his eyes. Dead man walking. He looked so cold out of his eyes. I've never seen that before.
In the 1,825 days since September 11th, 2001, Rudi Dekkers lost his livelihood, lost his marriage. He hopes to salvage his reputation.
I was just a company trying to make a living. I have no apologies.
And Rudi has had tough times. He's seen 3 businesses fail since 9/11. He went from aviation to refilling toner cartridges, and he's now in the pool business. He hopes to have his book out in January and be able to recoup some of those losses. As for his chopper crash, the FAA has not ruled it suspicious.
Thank you, Amy. Plans for a memorial honoring victims of 9/11 in Collier County have hit
the United States. 2 of the pilots. But as you were saying, if they walked into a room, if they walked into the studio right now, would there be anything that I saw about them that would stand out?
If they would walk into the room right now, I would react like every other citizen American, and that's to squeeze their own neck with my own hands, because these animals don't deserve to be on Earth. And I will do everything what I can to prevent a system that when we get foreign students, that we do a double check. The government is checking them. They came into the United States. They came in through another flight school, apparently, with licenses. I have said this morning on another news channel that I won't let any people in my company anymore from their belief. And I said Muslims, and I was wrong with that because of the fact that there's a lot of good Muslims. But what I mean to say is, when I got somebody coming in my flight schools, and I own more than just this flight school, we will send the information to the FBI, the local office, to double check what's going on. We don't want this. We don't want this. We don't want this. We want the same thing as you guys, safety.
I understand exactly what you're saying. What I really was asking was, you know, hindsight's 20/20. All I'm asking you is something about the way they look, the way they dressed, the way they acted, other than what you said, that makes them stand out in any way. Not that you would have recognized it at the time, just that would give us another clue as to who they are.
I recall the bigger guy more than the smaller guy, obvious for the reason I told you already. The bigger guy was slumpy clothing, The other guy I didn't pay too much attention on at all. They were not behaving different than the other students. They're nothing. They slept, one of my employees rented out a room to them because usually we got students coming from overseas and we know weeks up front that they're coming, and then we book hotels or space for them to stay. In this case, they walked through the front door and they asked us, we investigated your flight school, we want to abduct training here, and we would like to do business with your school. My people said, we have no space for you to stay. Then I asked my employees, well, is there nobody who has a spare room? Can we rent out a room? I mean, face it, we're a flight school, and we want to train people.
What kind of pilots What kind of pilots were they?
I checked with the instructor who dealt with them. They were average pilots, not exceptionally good. The bigger one, the big guy was a little less. The small guy was smarter. That's all I heard from the instructor.
After a day of dealing with this, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, when I heard about it this morning, 7 o'clock, I can't describe you my feeling. I'm asking myself constant, and reporters too, would there be anything with the knowledge now what they did that I would see, recognizing for the problem they did? No, nothing. I don't think that my people who dealt with them, not me, but my people, could have done anything to prevent this. They came in here, they did the license, they left, they went to another flight school to get jet training, because it is absolutely impossible to go in a jet from our school. We do not train jets, we're not qualified, we don't even have them. They fly only the small stuff. So I feel bad, my people feel bad, and much worse than yesterday. But could we change anything on this? Nothing. Nothing. Nothing.
Rudi
we feel bad.
Rudi Dekkers, We appreciate the time that you've taken to talk to us today and to shed a little light on a very difficult topic, I know, for you and for the rest of the country. Again, thank you for your time. Rudi Dekkers, the president of the Aviation School.
Dr. Bernadine Healy. We go now to Fort Myers, Florida. Rudi Dekkers joins us. He's the owner of Huffman Aviation International. The FBI has talked to Rudi about a possible suspect. Reports that 2 of the bombing suspects may have attended his school. Is that what they talked to you about, Rudi?
Yes, that's correct. They called us. They came by 2:45 a.m. last night, and they got from my managers several files about these students. And during the day, we found a lot more about these students. They've been with us from July till October, November last year, and obtained the first licenses they needed to fly.
So this was their initial training as pilots, right?
Yeah, it's an initial training. They came walking into the door, checked our facility, and choose to fly with us. And in November, apparently, that's what we heard and learned today, they went to other flight school to obtain jet training. We do not provide jet training. The training we provide as Huffman Aviation in Venice is solely for small planes.
Were they of a nationality other than American?
No, they were, my people took copies of their passports when they came in because they need to show an ID. And apparently one of them was in Afghanistan, and I don't know what the other one was. I don't see the files myself because I have my managers taking care of that. I have spoken with one of them in several occasions, and Mr. Atta, I spoke to him one time, 5 minutes.
That's Mohammed Atta, right?
Mohammed Atta, that's correct.
And he was one of the 2. Were they good pilots?
I have checked today with the instructor and with the examiner who did the flight test, and they were average pilots. Average.
They had to go on to, now with your training, they couldn't go on and fly a 757 or a 767, so they go on to jet school.
Yeah.
Were you shocked by all of this? Did they ever look did you ever have any inkling that these people might be involved? And again, this is all just conjecture. We don't know that they were the pilots on any of these planes.
No,
what do you make of it?
Well, I was shocked yesterday when it happened in the United States with the tragedy. Today, it was at my doorstep and not 2,000 miles away. We were in shock, and we're still in shock. We had no knowledge, of course. None of my people, I have 48 employees in Venice. None of them had any idea, of course. It's unbelievable. The feeling we have is undescribable. It's terrible.
Now, Rudi, if they were involved, they had to have been planning this for a long time.
Well, yeah, the first day when we saw what happened, we thought, you know, like every other American, would this be planned a long time ahead, etc., etc. We know now that they were flying with us from July to November. And after our flight school, they went to another flight school, so they've been planning this quite a while.
In the questioning, did the FBI give you an indication that they were strong suspects?
They did not spoke to me about the questioning because that happened at 2:30, 2:40 a.m. this morning, and they called me at 7 o'clock this morning. I briefly talked to the FBI when they're ready to leave the office, and they indicated to my employees that they thought that these were prime suspects. Yes, sir.
I guess in your life of training people to be pilots, you never thought that you would have people use you to go on to do terroristic acts.
No, you don't think about that. We do all the necessary work to know who customers are. We have a lot of foreign students coming over. These people were foreigners, but they came over directly in the front door. They said they've been flying with other flight schools in the United States. They were not happy. Choose our school to finalize their training.
Rudi, thank you. I know how tough this must be for you. Rudi Dekkers, the owner of Huffman Aviation International.
Thank you.
We meet now. Thank you. 3 experts on the subject of terrorism.
We're looking at a picture right now. Joining us right now from Fort Myers, Florida, is Rudi Dekkers. He's the president of Huffman Aviation, which runs a flight school where 2 of the suspected terrorists trained. Rudi, thanks for joining us on the phone there now. Let me ask you, were you suspicious of these guys?
No, of course not. We had no suspicion with all my 48 employees that these people had any thoughts other than become a professional pilot in their own country. That was what they told us.
Did they say